Hello. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're working on an LX charger, which just covers the Magnums 300 and the chargers. So let's move forward. We are going to be pulling this differential out from underneath the car. We already dropped it down, which I'll be including in another video, which is a whole different process. But right now, we are going to be getting it on the table. We're going to be assessing where the leaks were. As you can tell, this differential has been leaking for a very long time. At this point, we're going to be figuring out which seal gave out first. At this time, I'd like to welcome you all back, and anyone who's new here, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Remember to like and subscribe and share us with your friends. Now on my channel, I'm going to be showing you how to restore cars, and you can learn from my mistakes and from my triumphs. And any of the cool tricks I also pick up along the way, I'll be sharing with you too. This way, you guys can be learning along the way as I have been learning. I've been doing this for about 13 years now, working in this two-bay garage, restoring cars, and making it a nice little safe haven for all types of vehicles, and I don't mind helping out my friends along the way and teaching them what I've also learned. So I'll also have some of their vehicles here, and occasionally there'll be someone else that stops by and they'll have me work on their vehicle, so you'll see different types always constantly shuffling through here. But at this point, I'm going to be mainly focusing on this LX charger for a lot of my videos right now. This way I can show you guys what I had to do to get it back on the road as a daily driver and fix a lot of the things that were wrong with it. Now, if modern's not your thing, you guys can also go into my channel and watch the 1965 Wagoneer that I have in my garage, in my care at this point. That's the next vehicle that I've been working on. And we'll be seeing that one getting restored on a budget while still getting it as close as I can to being as beautiful as it deserves to be. Alright guys, so right now I'm pulling the CV axles out of this differential for the charger. As you can see here, I'm trying to figure out where the leak was going on. I'm shoving my head in there. I'm kind of just trying to figure out where the right side, passenger side, was seeping out of that seal. And this other side, we still got to pop it out. But for now, we're going to leave that in there inside the differential. That way that CV axle can create that seal right there, and we can actually scrub it off and clean this differential of all the old grease, dirt, and dander, rust, all that stuff that's collected on that pumpkin. We're going to get it all off. Right now I'm using some duct tape over there where that CV axle is already popped out. It's really easy to pop these out, but I didn't want to have to reset it. So we're going to get some duct tape on there. Make sure you get all the old grease off because it's not going to want to stick. It's also still going to fight you regardless because it's almost impossible to get all that grease off, but you're going to do your best. This way all those particles don't fall inside there. Like I said, you can see my duct tape is already fighting me. It was really old duct tape, and it's already popping off. I scrubbed it about 3 or 4 times, that area, to get all the gear oil off of it. It's still popping off. But like I said, it's going to keep all the extra debris off that area, and you can worry about scrubbing finely in that area with a brush or a nice paper towel. At the end, nothing that can get dander, little particles of paper or anything. You can try to keep that out of the differential. You don't want anything to go in there. Now at this point you can use brake clean or any sort of degreaser that you like. I like using this purple one. It's very cost effective. You can get about 20 gallons at Walmart or any other place that you want. The purple power. I got these little spray bottles that I constantly refill. I buy their brand bottle. That way, that material doesn't eat it up. And this way, we could soak this for about 20-30 minutes. Right now I'm going to be very liberal and spray as much as I can on there. You can do as much as you want. Go excessive, don't worry about it. You can dilute this degreaser, but at this point, this stuff is so thick on there, I didn't need to cut this with wood or anything else like that. We're going to spray it all over this pumpkin, get this differential fully soaked. Those CV axles, we're going to get a little bit on them, but we're going to watch the rubber seal, obviously, with the highly concentrated degreaser. I don't think it's going to eat at it, but don't, quote me on that. Make sure you test your car and don't use other people's results for your own if it's going to eat it or not. For me, like I said, I didn't put much on the rubber, and when it got on the rubber, I sprayed it down with some water to cut down the degreaser's strength. Alright, now it comes down to the scrubbing. You can use power tools, you can use hand tools, you can use wire scrapers, you can use wire brushes, you can use files, you can use sticks. You can use almost anything you want to get that grease off. But just remember, you still have to sand it at the end. This is just to get that heavy grease off. Now, if you want to power wash it, you can. Right now, it was so cold outside, my power washer wasn't even going to work anyway. The hoses were frozen. So at this point, I was stuck with using a bottle, spraying it down because right now you could hit it with the power washer before you wire brush it. Now you can use a screwdriver to get in those tight little areas that you can't get the wire brush or anything else like that. And that's why I suggested a stick, which is kind of really silly to say. But if you got something sturdy and you don't have a screwdriver and you don't feel like ruining a screwdriver, which you're not going to ruin it, it's just grease, you can clean it off. You can use a little edge of a stick that's strong enough to scrub up against that surface and get that heavy grease off, and then hit it with your wire brush if you're worried about your wire brush being gunked up too. Now, I recommend using a bunch of little shop towels, any dirty rags that you have that are spare scrap ones. Don't use anything that's good. And you can start pulling off some of that heavy grease with that towel as you're scrubbing it to check what's going on. As you can see here, I'm taking a picture of the sticker, which actually had some documentation numbers on there that were for the part and everything else like that. So we're going to take this sticker off before it's ruined. We're also going to soak it and get some more of that grease off, scrub around it, and make sure I can pop it off. Now, at this time, I wasn't worried about the degreaser ruining that sticker or whatever you want to call it at this point, the label, because it's not going to get any worse than it was being underneath your car with the road and everything else blown up on it, all that grease that's been leaking on it. Right now, I just need to get it cleaned up enough so that I can actually get it off. As you can see here, I always keep respraying it after I scrubbed it for a bit. It's one of those things that you're going to keep doing over and over and over again until you're done getting all that grease off. And that's why I said the power washer really helps, but you got to worry about getting any water inside your system if you pulled out the CV axles already. Alright, at this point, I did put it on ×4. You're going to be seeing this fast forward because at this point, it's just a bunch of scrubbing down. It's going to take a couple minutes, but I didn't want to edit out all that extra manual labor so you guys can see that there was no cutting around. Now, at this point, just remember you don't have that much time invested in it. You're just doing some of your own manual cleanup, and if you don't care about the grease, you don't even have to clean it off. But to be honest, I didn't want to have this all underneath there again after doing all this work and sending it back underneath dirty and replacing those seals and making it still look like it's leaking, and then you won't be able to tell because you didn't clean it off. As you can see here, you're finally starting to see the metal underneath. Now, if the grease just starts to get on your nerves, just take a little bit of a break because you know it's not a race. Unless you're working in a shop, then go ahead and race away and get it done as fast as possible and as safely as possible. And if you see any more grease, go back over it with some more degreaser and scrub it off. Like I said, the actual scrubbing can be done with the rags too. It helps you get off any of that excess that the brush is leaving on there. And as you can see, you can even see the barcode on that sticker or label, whatever you want to call it, is still there. Now at this point, you can tape it off before you do your priming or anything else, but I do recommend that you use something stronger than blue tape as it probably won't stick there. But I am going to be removing my sticker. Now, if you're lucky like I was, it can pop off that easy and it won't rip on you. I am not going to guarantee yours is going to come off the same way. You can always use a heat gun or a little plastic scraper underneath. And like I said, if you do not feel comfortable removing it, you do not have to. But I knew mine was going to fall off because it was already loose on the corner, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose it forever. All right, so I'm going to degrease it one more time. You can check yours again if you feel comfortable with degreasing it again, but if you're actually happy with it, you do not have to. Once you spray it down, we're going to hit it again with the wire brush. Make sure that there's nothing left on there, and we're going to scrub it all off. Now, once you're done with the top side, we're going to hit the front of it, and we're also going to flip it over at one point. But as you can see here, we're letting it soak again with a heavy layer of degreaser. Then I'll be scrubbing it off one more time with the brushes and using my towels. As you can see, you also can see that oil rainbow reflection. That's all that old gear oil and everything else that's been mixing on the outside of that surface. As you can see, I flipped it over, and we're going to be hitting it again. like I said, you can mix it with a little bit of water. I just keep the water in another spray bottle, and that's how you kind of dilute it. Now, just like we did on the other side, you're going to repeat the same thing, and you're going to scrub it down, use your rags, wipe it off, then spray it down again, and repeat. Keep doing it until there's no more grease, because it's going to affect if you paint it, and if you don't paint it, just get it as good as what you're comfortable with. You don't have to use too much pressure unless you have some really massive caked on stuff. Just a little bit of elbow pressure will give enough friction with the brush to get off that material. Now for a softer approach, I also have these brushes, which they're really good for detailing, but this one I only use for cleaning up dirty stuff so I don't mix it with clean things. But right now I use that in those areas that those wire brushes can't reach. Alright, at this point my camera actually ran out of footage, so I had to put a new camera card in, and I didn't know until I was already getting started with spraying on the new paint slash primer, which is supposedly both in the same can. I am going budget on this aspect. I'm not putting really expensive 2K paint or anything on it. I live in a salty area. This is most likely going to get all chipped up and everything else like that from driving on the road within like a week or two, especially with the salt. It didn't have to be expensive paint. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using my heat gun to bring up the surface temperature without burning the paint. In between the coats, you're going to put on a very light first coat. As I said, I was using a rattle can to achieve this paint job on this differential. It has a primer supposedly built into it. So we're going to see how it goes. We're going to put it on there. It's supposed to be for bare metal or anything else like that. And we're only going to put it on the differential. We're not putting it on the CV axles. Now, between each coat, I was using my heat gun, and this will also help you cure and adhere, because right now it's winter time. My garage is a little bit heated, but it's not enough for the paint to cure all the way instantly in the normal cure time. So to speed it up just a little bit, you can use this as a way of heating up your paint without burning it. But just don't get too close and don't sit in the same area too long. Obviously, make sure you tape off the area so you don't get any of the paint inside the differential. Now, I did put about 3 coats on there, and remember, this is supposed to act as a primer and a single stage paint, so that's why it's going to probably take another coat, which is what I was about to do. I'm using my heat gun right now, and we're going to bring the temperature up one last time, and then we're going to hit it one last time with that paint. Now what I am doing is just over checking and making sure there's no areas that I missed, and then I'm going to just dust on that last flow coat to make sure it has a really good shine to it. In my opinion, it doesn't look half bad for a cheap rattle can, and it's a plum color, so it's going to match the Mopar theme very well and stay within our budget. Now, if this was a show car or a Concours restoration or something of that caliber, a high build resto mod, I would be going to get a more expensive paint from the actual paint store mixed up, and that way we can actually have some stronger durability. Alright, what I did was I came back in a few hours, I let the other end dry, and now we're going to do the back end of this differential, which is the cover. So we're going to pretty much get this all heated up so that we can get the first coat on. Now I'm just trusting the process as it says it's a primer plus the single stage paint. So we're going to hope, cross our fingers, but that's why it goes on so transparent and it's going to take way more coats than if we actually were going to be putting on a primer beforehand, which I would recommend. But this is a daily driver and I'm just trusting the product to do what it says it's going to do. And this is just not going to be one of those big showroom car finishes. It's just supposed to look way better than it was. This paint is going to do exactly what it's supposed to do. It's going to reseal up that differential and make sure that there's no way that that road salt can start to corrode it again. But like I said, it's definitely something that you can consider doing if you want to save on your budget and also just get some paint on there to protect it. Alright, so I had to cut out some of the footage, but this is what it looks like after another 2 coats. Very thin on there, but it's starting to look a lot better. Now, like I said, I'm using my heat gun between each coat because it's about 50 degrees in my garage, and that's a little too chilly, and it's about 20 degrees outside, so it's probably one of those things where it's going to be harder to cure, so I like using my heat gun. You can use infrared lamps, you can buy a few other things. In the garage, I'm trying to keep down on the electric, so so I don't have it cranking on the high heat. So use your heat gun, especially if you live in a cold area. Alright, I used my wire wheel and used some rust conversion gel on these CV axles, and then I put some primer and this flame proof silver paint on there, and it looks really good. Then we're going to do the tone rings and everything else. Alright, we're on the final stages. I let it dry for another day. I got something soft to roll this differential over on, and just know that some of that gear fluid might come out, and that's okay. So don't worry about any oil that pours out as you saw right there. We're going to let this sit on this end, and we're going to paint that bottom side. Now, ideally, if you can get your differential on something where you can spray it on all sides at one time without having any spaces, without paint, you could do it that way. But if not, you could do it the way I showed you and do it in sections. Just give your paint enough time to dry between all of the coats. Like I said, this is the paint I used. It's made by Krylon. If you're interested in checking it out yourself, you can go and check out if they have a color or anything else in your project's choice of color. Of course, it wasn't the best, and it also wasn't the worst. So just use it with your own judgment of what you like, and if it's up to your standards. Like I said, this is just a daily driver, and it was more than enough for what I was looking for. It has enough shine, and it also will provide enough corrosion resistance for what I'm just looking for. And it'll probably last maybe a few years before I'll have to sand it down again probably and recoat it again with the same paint. Alright, we're going to get the first coat of paint on there, and you're going to just get it on very lightly, dust it on there in that section like I showed you how I did the other ones. And if the panel is heated up enough, it'll actually almost absorb the paint or stick a lot easier, especially if it's your first coat, and really keep you from having any sags or runs. Now, I'm going to show you what a dust coating kind of looks like in my slang term. I'm sure other people use their own terms for it. And you get it kind of just transparent enough where you can kind of still see underneath. And now we're going to put on the second coat. Now, as you can see, I'm not doing the 50% overlap yet. I'm not worried about which direction I'm really spraying per se. I'm just getting it on there for some coverage on that third to fourth coat, depending on if this is enough coverage where it's not transparent. That last coat, that's where you're going to go medium on the actual spray and make sure you cover with like a medium amount. You're not going to go light. You're not going to go too heavy where it causes sags, if you understand what I'm saying. Put a medium coat on there of that paint. And when you do that medium coat on your last coat, it will give you that finish that you want. And you'll have enough paint on there that hopefully, and I say hopefully because it depends on how you're spraying, you will not cause any sags. And that's why I said do a medium coat. Don't go too heavy because that will cause some runs. Alright, once you get your final coat on, because I was spraying and I was doing this over the last like hour and some of the footage cut out, but I got my last coat on there. I am so happy with how the differential came out with this paint on there. It's so close to the Mopar Plum Crazy Purple. In the next video, I'll be showing you how to replace these seals on the side of the differential and also put on the tone rings on the rear CV axles. So thanks again, guys, for tuning back in. And remember to like and subscribe to see more videos just like this.